Hello, everybody. Welcome to TSC Talks, the podcast inspired by the condition known as tuberous sclerosis complex. My name is Jill Woodworth, and I am your host. Today on the podcast, we have Women in Weed, canna businesses, all female and owned and operated. So the people that are on this episode, I have so much respect for. We've interviewed so many women throughout the industry. We've included others in other compilation podcasts, and just can't speak highly enough about these ladies and all the ladies that we've talked to out there doing this work and spreading the good news of cannabis and overcoming stigma and helping to change the world. So we have up Tiffany Watkins. She is the owner of Vanguard Media, as well as being Lady Canna. We also have Danielle Benea. She is a pharmacist at The Botanist, which is a local store in the Massachusetts area. However, her insight as a pharmacist in a dispensary is really great. We also have Danielle Jo McQueen of Old Man Goodies, which is a cannabis platform store in Maine, who has a really inspiring story. You really got to listen to her full podcast. And also we have the Canna Moms, Amy Searles and Joyce Gerber. This was back about a year ago when they were both together. Now it's just Joyce Gerber. However, I included the clip from Amy because she is part of the story, and we wrap it up with Ruth Fisher, who's the author of the Medical Cannabis Primer, which is definitely one book you want on your bookshelf if you're in the industry. Chock full of information. She is a PhD researcher, analyst, and she just gives us a short clip at the end. Anyways, thanks everybody for being a part of this. Even if you don't know you're a part of it, we love you, and take it away, Women in Weed.
I am a wife and I'm a mom, and I enjoy that very much. So I have two kids, both teenagers, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Yeah, right. Let's see. I have a long history in cannabis for a multitude of reasons. I probably got most passionate about it right around the age of 20. So that was in the early 90s, around 1992. And by 94, I was working kind of like a part-time, just volunteer, just putting together flyers and putting together literature to help spread the word about how cannabis could help. We were very grassroots at that time as compassionate care was trying to be passed in the state of California. And we really just did everything that we could. We would hold rallies at the Capitol, get asked to leave. And yeah, it was always a very friendly environment. But that was kind of how I cut my teeth. It was just with a lot of opposition to cannabis, a lot of stigma. And the approach was just kind of to kill them with kindness. We give information, we peacefully gather, and it was an effort all over the place in multiple states, but with all of our voices acting together, we were able to effect change. I think that is really what steamrolled me into knowing that if we can all band together, then we can really make changes where we want to.
Awesome. This isn't on the list, but what drew you to cannabis? Was it your own personal experience, or was it just feeling like people should have access and it's not a dangerous drug?
Well, what drew me in was during that time in the early 90s, there were, we were really coming off the scare of the 80s with HIV and AIDS, and there were plenty of my friends that touched their lives. They either had a family member or it was themselves. And at that time, they were noticing that cannabis was very helpful in aiding from some of the very heavy medications that they were on to try to help with the HIV and sometimes full-blown AIDS, to stave away the wasting away and such, that they were using cannabis to increase appetite and lift mood and just have a better quality of life. They were treated like criminals.
Yeah, so that's what I want. I was trying to make that connection. I figured it's usually something like that people just can't turn away.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's hard to look away from that. When you say, here's a person just trying to help themselves, they want to be able to spend more time with their families. They have a limited amount of time. They have got an expiration tag on their toe, and they would like to have a better quality of life with their families and friends, and here they are being treated like a common criminal for doing something that affects only them. It doesn't, if they're in their home and they're enjoying cannabis, whether it be edibles or smoking, they were being treated like they were doing something wrong. And it just wasn't a fair shot. People, they needed a voice. We were there to give a voice to people when they couldn't have their own voice.
And that was through the Compassionate Care Program. You're in Oregon?
Yes, I'm in Oregon, right? I'm in Washington, and I work in Washington, Oregon. I am from the state of California.
Just trying to get, so yeah, that's pretty early in the cannabis movement in the 90s for compassionate care. So yeah, so from there you got started then, and then what else happened? How did you get into your career, and just kind of give me a timeline?
Yeah, absolutely. So after that, like I said, I was young. I was in my early 20s. I was a, fresh college student, and I went on. At that time, there wasn't really, go build your career in cannabis. We still operated from the shadows. So there was always some sort of rally that I was attending while, of course, going to college, where I pursued a career in technology. I worked for years as a network systems engineer. And that was my day job. And then, of course, in the shadows, we were all about cannabis. And, I started that career young and burnt out on it. I moved into other fields. I went into the fitness field because I was really interested in exercise physiology and things like that, and ultimately landed in distribution sales for agriculture. From that, by that time, people had really started in the mid, to early 2000s there. People had really started opening up about cannabis. And I felt it was a great time to start joining some clubs and just really getting my feet back out there. Not that I really put activism on a hiatus, but it was a new form of activism at this point. It was really, how is this industry going to affect our community? What can we do to keep people understanding and not building the stigma, the us against them type of thing, because it really was going in that direction. And that kind of just opened the door for me to jump right back in. And this time I could make cannabis not only my career, but still keep it as my passion, and two just married well.
Recently, Tiffany invited me to a screening of The Women in Weed with the director, Mindy. Is it Mindy?
It's Wendy.
Wendy
Borman.
Borman.
Mary Jane's The Women of Weed. Yeah, directed and completely done by Wendy Borman.
That was awesome and so inspiring. Yeah. So. Yeah, that was a really unique, I found that to be like a unique type of, I don't know whether it was a marketing or just like a publicity, fun thing to do, but I thought it was great.
Well, I'll tell you this. The reason why I did it was because I'm in full support of women in the cannabis space. And more importantly, I saw the film the first time. I was invited by a women's group in Sacramento, California, to see it at the Crest Theater, and it was wonderful. They created such a beautiful environment. And with COVID-19, I know that certain changes had to be made. I was talking to Wendy, and she said that she would be doing virtual screens, and I knew I wanted to be on board and bring this to more people, and those of us who just wanted to see it again, because it was such a great snapshot of where we can be, where we've come from as women in space, and some of the challenges that we have. It's just a great snapshot, and it bears being over and over again, especially if we can reach new audiences. So it wasn't really marketing. It wasn't for publicity. It really was just because it strengthens the message that women hold space and we need to recognize it, right? So I'm glad that you and Lisa were able to come and actually get a chance to talk to the director, because she is wonderful. She's been doing film forever, and she does a great job. So I was glad you were able to come and visit with us.
It was, yeah. I felt honored to be there. And, as Lisa and I are pretty new into the industry, to just get a little bit of that feel for where women in particular have kind of entered in the history of it. I want to see it again. So you're really immersed in women's activism in the industry. And tell me about Vanguard Media, because you're Lady Canna. So how did you kind of merge it into or expand that?
Sure. It just really, it kind of expanded itself. The idea needed to be more broad. And I knew that I was speaking, you had speaking engagements up and down the West Coast, but I also had interest, just word of mouth in my own personal network in other areas. And so I kept thinking, how can I do this? And I thought, well, let's do the event circuit. And, and which is fine. But then COVID-19 hit. And I was like, well, this has got to be redesigned. The model was completely different. I'm 100% honest and transparent. The model was completely different before January 2020.
Wow.
And here, we're in September, approaching the end of 2020, and I couldn't be happier with that. The pivot that I had to make didn't affect this movement one bit. It was really to be more of event-based, partnering with large companies to put on educational events and have these live panels of these women of what I wanted to showcase in every state. So I found a way to consolidate that idea down and still spread their same exact stories, but through an online format and a magazine. And so with expanding into the magazine and online format, I have been able to still share the stories, connect with the same exact woman I would have connected with anyway. And it's really been great. And I have stories from all over the country, which is, I love. We need to get these women's voices out there. The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what I say. It's that is what we are putting out there, because it deserves to go out. We need to know your experience as a woman in this industry.
Up next is Danielle McQueen of Old Man Goodies. Check it out. Love your business. I mean, what's your main, is it edible products? I mean,
we do the teas. Of course, I started off with just one tea, and we do make 3 teas now in hot cocoa, but we put them in these brew in the bags, put the water inside, let it brew, and then next thing you know, you just undo the cap, and your tea comes out. So it's like your own little teapot on the go.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we do 3 blends. We also do a hot chocolate. So those are our main products. But when Corona started, right before that, we had a lot of elderly patients that hadn't been able to get out anymore. Mm-hmm. So one time, why can't you just send it to my house? Sometimes I can just order snacks off Amazon. They come in a box. Mm-hmm. And I started to laugh. But then my sister says to me, can't you just make me stuff and send it to my house? And I thought, how about you make it yourself? So I gave her an instruction sheet, the molds, and everything, and I sent her on her way. Well, then I thought, you know what? I would like somebody to send to my house all this stuff, so I'm going to create it myself, I thought, So we started to do subscription boxes.
I saw that.
Subscription boxes. And it's been a huge hit. I never thought it would be what it is, so I'm really blessed. But they're these boxes. They come like this, and they say, you're not in Wonderland anymore. And this box one, let's see what this one is. Okay, so this one's the make your own gummy one. So will come with step 1.
Oh my gosh.
2, and step 3.
I'm going to get some. That is so cool.
It comes with your own little mold, and this box came with an apron that says, I like to get high, and then in little letters, quality ingredients at my farm market. But June boxes are make your own s'mores. Campfire, get toast boxes. So every month we change the theme. And next month they'll be able to make their own chocolate bars. But the marshmallows are CBD made, and the graham crackers will come already pre-made, and they'll make their own chocolates.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's really, I think it's given the patients that ability of I made my own edibles, that feeling. So,
blown away.
Honestly, I love it. It's really been a huge response from the community. I didn't think it would be. I really just kind of
I can
thought
see
it was
why.
just going to help a few people. And next thing you know, I was like, what people? When I got my first 12-year subscription plan, I was like, oh, well, doesn't matter if it was just an idea, because now it's staying. You don't have a choice, but it's been great. It's been about 6 months now that we've run them, and it's been amazing. So it's definitely a keeper. We'll keep that one, but mainly we do the teas and hot chocolate, and now this.
Up next is Danielle Benea, pharmacist at The Botanist, which is a dispensary in Worcester, Massachusetts.
So why don't you give me a little bit of information about yourself and your background?
Okay. So I graduated UConn Pharmacy School in 2014 with my Doctor of Pharmacy. And at the time, 5 years ago. And at the time, medical marijuana in my state, in Connecticut, was just being approved as far as the legislation and whatnot. And at the time, a lot of people in the medical community didn't really know what to think about it. We didn't know what they were going to do with it, how they were going to run the program. And so at the time, I never thought I would work in medical cannabis. I graduated and I started working at Stop and Shop Pharmacy, where I'm actually still per diem at times. So retail pharmacy, and I was very happy with that. And it was what I was doing since I was 16 as a technician.
Really?
So that was my background.
Oh, cool.
About 2 years into working, I started feeling like I wanted to maybe explore some other options in pharmacy, because as much as I loved what I did, I didn't feel that I had as much patient contact as I would like, which, you would think would be, you have a lot of, you're standing there the whole day talking to patients, but, sometimes as being the pharmacist, you're in the back, you're doing a lot, there's a lot of other
kind of
things
behind
to
the
do.
Scenes almost, like when I go to the pharmacy, it's the cashiers and then for the techs, and then sometimes I wave to the pharmacist.
Exactly. And so I started feeling like, I really want to be more patient-centered. So I started looking around, and I had a technician of mine who had left us a little bit before that to go work at Prime Wellness of Connecticut, which is the medical marijuana dispensary in South Windsor. And he said, Danny, I've been talking about you to some of my managers. They might be hiring a new pharmacist soon. Why don't you send me your resume? I think that you'd be a good fit here. So I did, and that's first I really thought about it. So I started doing some research into it, and by that time, the program was up and running for a couple years. So I put my resume, I went for an interview, and they decided to take me on. And what I really loved about it was how patient-centered it was, because most of our day is meeting with patients, talking with patients, whether it be consults or on the phone or through email, having them come in, ask questions. So we still do regular day-to-day activities as far as filling, the prescriptions and whatnot. But we do get that really, really patient-centered one-on-one time.
That's pretty cool.
Now I've been there for about 3 years. And in that time, I always maintained my dual licensure. So from the minute I graduated pharmacy school, I was licensed in Massachusetts and Connecticut. And my company was bought by a bigger company that has dispensaries in different states. And so when The Botanist opened in Massachusetts, that is our sister company. And being licensed in Mass, they decided to maybe see, how I could be helpful up there. The difference between Massachusetts and Connecticut is that pharmacists aren't technically part of the regulations in Massachusetts like they are in Connecticut. So the way our program works in Connecticut is, we have to have pharmacists that work at the dispensary, because our state classified it as a controlled substance category 2, which means it has to be dispensed by a pharmacist. So that's sort of where that came from. But just the fact that we have pharmacists really made it was a great tool, because patients do have questions. They have questions about medication interactions, and a lot of times, the doctors will then ask us, and just having us accessible to the patients right away was very beneficial. So my company thought, it works in Connecticut. Why don't we offer that service in Massachusetts and see how it goes and see how it's received? And I started doing a couple events there, really trying to get the patient feedback on it. And everyone was very excited, and they were very intrigued.
What did you do at the event? What was that?
One of the first ones I did was for the grand opening of The Botanist, actually. They had me there, and I was standing there. We had a terpene bar, so we were teaching people about terpenes as they were coming in. And then I was just asking patients, how would you feel about having a pharmacist here and being able to get some of your questions answered? And a lot of people were a lot of positive feedback. So over time, I've been going there more and more, and now I'm there consistently every Thursday in-house. Okay. And then besides that, I do outreach events with our outreach coordinator, Ross. And, when there's like a CannaCon or an expo, I'll be at the table with him and I can talk to patients there and then just spread information. And then we also do presentations. So we did a senior center presentation in Sterling a couple weeks ago where it's like it's information session. Yeah. So we do that and the feedback from those is quite amazing. The first one we went to, we didn't know how popular it was going to be. We thought it might be 10 to 15 people, more of a round table discussion. And I show up and there's 60 people sitting there waiting for us to present. Yes. So that was definitely interesting. It's given me an opportunity to work on some public speaking skill sets. That's always been something I've always been a little nervous about. So it's definitely, giving me an opportunity to do that. And it's been very exciting. And so that's how I ended up up in Massachusetts helping as a botanist. And, it's just been growing since. We have a lot of presentations we want to do and opportunities like this. People want to know information and that's why we're there. We're there to give it out and help people find the right information and see how it might be fitting for them or certain disease states with certain medications. And what I've seen, it's definitely been helpful for a plethora of conditions. Yeah. And it's amazing to see some of the positive changes that I've seen in some of my patients that I work closely with.
So you can see the change. That's got to be rewarding, especially. Yeah, I guess I didn't think about the fact that, in a regular pharmacy, you're like 2 steps removed and you're really getting some like personal individualized interaction, which I think, in my opinion, is what's needed overall, but particularly with something like cannabis because there's just so many variables that people don't understand and so much we still don't know. So
that's what also makes it challenging.
Yeah.
It's not like regular medicine in practices that have already been established as a standard of care don't include cannabis because there's not a lot of research. It's been federally illegal for a while. Yeah. So not having those evidence-based facts does make it very challenging. I think it's also exciting because we really are on the forefront of maybe setting those standards of care. But there is a lot of variables, and that's definitely why at least having, health professionals to be able to help patients navigate those variables, how it could be useful for them as an individual or even how to use it. There's, 4 to 5 different ways to use it, and it might not always be appropriate for every patient. And so being able to help them, one of my most rewarding instances too, so in Connecticut we do help pediatric patients too with seizures and
they have a seizure protocol. That's
and so it's interesting because every child is different too. So there are things that
we're all just so different, and we've extrapolated these treatments that I really think need overall individualized. That's kind of my soapbox.
And things come up too, factors that you don't know. I had one patient who we mostly use CBD and for some reason this patient CBD exacerbated the seizures. And so
that happened to my daughter.
Yep. And so we actually switched to THCA, and that helped her. It's just very interesting. And some conditions we can help track symptoms, so like seizures, so we can monitor how many seizures are they having, are they going down, what's going on. Some conditions are a little bit more challenging with measuring symptoms. Pain is something that is not technically a measure that you can use. It's very subjective as well. PTSD symptoms, there's a lot of different things. And so being able to just observe and collect data and just really try to use the patterns that I've seen to try to help other people is really kind of where we're at right now. I'm hoping that in time things can be more established. It's difficult though because it is a plant, so things are not across the board. Every batch might be slightly different. Every there's a lot of things that go into it, and I think it gets such a bad rap, but I think it's just really misunderstood, and I think it's scary this is what I think, and you can jump in and correct me, but like for doctors, it's got to be scary because there's really no
there's not a lot of absolutes. So you're kind of flying blind, like you were saying, there's no protocol for as pharmacists necessarily to standards of care or anything. So you're kind of really are like right on trailblazing with this, what you're doing, I think. I love it. I love hearing about this.
Up next is Joyce Gerber, the Canna Mom Show. Take it away, Joyce.
So I always say my story is a little different than the women who tend to get into this, I've noticed just from doing all these interviews. So those stories tend to be someone with an illness, as you've probably observed, or a child with an illness, like you've observed, and then they go down that medication route.
Yep.
And then they discover cannabis, right, on their own, and then seem to be using it, themselves as guinea pigs, which is not my story in any way, shape, or form.
Good. I like to hear a range,
Yes. So
yeah.
My story is really, I'm a lawyer. My son is going to be 21 next week.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. My greatest accomplishment is that he was with me during law school pregnant, and that
my goodness.
I took the bar pregnant and passed the first time. I proved that a woman's uterus and brain can work simultaneously. Yeah. Then when I actually had the baby and passed the bar, then that whole juggling profession mom thing really, wow, that was hard.
Yeah.
So I had Josh, couldn't figure out how to get a job. I was juggling that whole thing of you get daycare and then get a job. It's exorbitantly expensive. How many hours do I want to work? I did have a baby. I might like to see him once in a while.
Right. I know. It's hard.
So my husband and I made the financial decision that I would do that tradition. I was 34. Never thought that would be me. I always said I would never be a stay-at-home mom in the suburbs. Yeah. And,
never say those things.
Never say never. I know. So we were living in Cambridge, so I technically wasn't in the suburbs, but I was that stay-home mom. I had another baby. And then when my daughter was 2, I decided it was time that I wanted to get back into the professional world and did all those things. I say I'm basically a professional relauncher.
Okay.
I keep relaunching my career. So I go back. And there's a whole army of women like me. That's the thing about this. We all went and got our education. I'm 54. And
yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, it's hard to have children. They're a lot of work.
Yeah, and no one really tells you that it's like you're in it for the whole thing. It's not like you can just put it down and walk back into your life.
And you don't even know if you're doing a good job. That's the hard part.
Oh, man, yeah.
Anyway, so, I was in and out of work. I was a family law attorney. I used to say I was terrible at it. I actually got fired.
Wow.
That was and then it was sort of at the end of like a long series of bad things happening, basically the worst of which my husband and I both went to work one day and left the kids at home. And every time I tell that story, people are like, oh yeah, we did that, or I did that, or
you mean you forgot to?
I left for work. My husband left for work. That's a classic story. They were babies. They were 7 and 9, but they were sort of confused. They're like, where is everybody?
Oh my gosh.
So that was sort of a turning point in my career when I was like, well, I kind of have to take care of them. So that was sort of like the fallback, and then I ended up getting fired. And then I just got to be that mom, the one who got really involved. I got so involved, I ran for school committee twice. And I have a good story for that too. I had a 11-year-old boy who was my campaign manager. I was actually a pretty good candidate, but Cambridge politics are hard.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So that didn't work out. And then I've been kind of in and out. I was doing some writing. I'm an overeducated woman. And the hard part about getting a job when you have a law degree or another advanced degree and you don't want to be that anymore is you can't take it off your resume because it looks like you didn't work, right?
Right. And
then you apply for other jobs and they can't understand why you'd want them.
I get that.
Yeah. So and I ended up getting a friend of mine, her dad had the housing relocation company. I have a background in affordable housing development.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I was doing some project management. I used to call it was like a board game, basically. We were moving residents in and out of their units while their units got renovated and then working to get them back in. It was just a lot of, it was a good project. Details. I'm good with that. And that's what I'm good at. I create order out of chaos. That's my greatest skill.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm the opposite. I create chaos and I have other people help me create order.
There you go. We need the yin and yang of life.
Yeah.
So anyway, so then I was a contract position, then there's a change in management, and this is 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized they were going to outsource me, that I was going to lose that job, and I was very upset.
Yeah.
sort of simultaneously, 2016, my husband and I went to Denver. And we did a great tour, a legal tour with a woman named Goldie Solidar from City Sessions, who took us on a private tour of the cannabis industry, and it blew my mind. I had no idea. We went to a dispensary, we went to a grow facility, just how normal it was, because it was not normal here in any way, shape, and form in 2016.
No.
So that sort of opened my eyes. Then 2017, I lost my job. I was having a really hard time getting another job. I went into career therapy.
Wow.
It wasn't my fault. It was just, structural. That, it wasn't just me. It wasn't personal.
Right.
And then kind of had this idea. I'm like, well, cannabis is new. Like, how often do you get to be part of something new, right? So I'm a lawyer. I started learning the regs. I started going to meetings. I went to like Women Who Grow and Elevate. And just the first time I heard the endocannabinoid system, I thought someone was lying.
Really?
All the things I didn't know. I learned the history. I have no idea. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But, cannabis can make you one.
Yes, it can.
And in 2018, I still didn't know where I'd fit in. Like, I realized that all the law firms in Boston now have cannabis divisions, but I wasn't quite up to speed on it yet. I didn't feel, but that's also a woman thing. Like, we feel like we have to be perfect before we jump in.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's a whole other show. We were talking about having more content. So my show literally came out of me and a friend talking about how do you talk to your kids about cannabis.
Okay.
My children are 18 and 21 now. They're a little bit younger. Yeah, so they're about 17, 20 when we were talking about it. Her kids were younger, like 9, 11, 13 something. And that was the first show, and I thought we were going to do it as a co-host sort of situation.
Okay.
But there's this funny divide in the cannabis world between CBD and cannabis.
Yeah, I'm learning that.
So she's testing products. She didn't really want to be connected to cannabis, and so this sort of ended up being my show. And it just really started with me finding friends on the street. Like, honest to God, I'd be walking around Cambridge.
I hear ya.
I'd be like,
will you be on my podcast?
Yeah. Like, I have a friend who wrote a book about the Beatles, and she was like, oh yeah, they were into cannabis. I'm like, oh, come on.
That's great.
That's how it started. And I just, I've been doing, I'm sure what you're doing. I do a lot of networking. I go to a lot of events. We were at NECAN, and I, so Amy, who hasn't talked yet, is really working on my social media campaign. Moms across the world, literally.
Yeah.
So it's sort of flourishing. People are reaching out to me, and now I have, so basically the goal is a show a week, which we're scheduled out. I have guests lined up through the December.
Nice.
I think this is a bottomless pit of discussion. I say it covers everything from cosmetics to criminal justice to climate change. I have a woman coming on who's going to have a special we're going to do once a month on climate change and cannabis.
Really? That's great.
I just, these are interesting stories that need to be heard. We're in we're in an anomaly in history. This is 100 years of weirdness. So anyway, so that's sort of my story is sort of backwards. I am a natural fighter. I say that I'm an attorney. They teach us to fight. I'm an advocate. I see this as this sort of amazing world. My mother is still a little concerned about me.
Yep, mine is too.
I have normalized it. I will say I've normalized it in my house. When we came home in 2016, when my husband and I came home from Denver, my son was 16, I think. And we sat him down and said, okay, everything we knew was wrong. Like seriously wrong. And we're going to talk about this in a new way. And I've normalized it. And, this is true. I'm Jewish. And at Rosh Hashanah, we hosted, 2 weeks ago. We had a bar and we had a cannabis bar.
Oh, beautiful.
That is beautiful. Nobody could sue, but it was there. So it was like, this is just part of my life now. And I always say, I don't have tattoos. I wear pearls. I play tennis. This is not my normal habitat, but I am so amazed and excited to be part of something new like this.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
That's my story. That's a great.
And I read your article on LinkedIn. I was like moved to tears. It's that, even though I didn't have the same experience, kind of a similar, being really like all of a sudden my eyes are opened and I do not feel ashamed or guilty about something that's helping me, and I am not going to be quiet. So,
I'm going to be quiet. Yeah, I believe that's a good motto. Maybe those will be t-shirts.
I'm writing it down.
Oh, jeez. Oh, wow. So, yeah. Great story. Now, Amy, do you want to tell me your story as well? I'd love to hear that.
And just so you know, Amy and I have known each other. Amy was my younger brother's college girlfriend. That's
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So that's a nice connection.
It is a great connection.
She's my canna sister.
That's right. Cannasis.
Cannasis.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Amy Searles. She was working with Joyce Gerber on the Canna Mom show. She's no longer working with Joyce, but they are still close, and I'm sharing this clip.
I mean, my story's not as extensive and interesting as Joyce's. I've just always loved weed. From the first time that I smoked it, from the first toke back in high school, in the early 80s.
Yep.
And yeah, I've just been smoking it on and off. There have been periods where I've taken big breaks, and then I've jumped back on and then taken more breaks. But it just really helps getting through life and the day. It helps me to enjoy the moment.
Exactly.
Stay positive, stay present.
Agreed.
And yeah, just that alone. I feel like I am a better mom.
Oh yeah, that's
hands down.
So, that kind of segues, and you both can talk about what have you personally faced, it sounds like you've got a really supportive community, but getting to that point, and even, as you have done this podcast, have you had any stigma, backlash?
For the most part, no.
No? Okay.
People still, the older generation will sometimes laugh when I tell them what I'm doing. I was at a Shiva, a funeral, I don't know, maybe a month ago with, my mom was there. And she always, when people ask me what I'm doing and she's sitting next to me, she always does give me that kind of funny look.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Everybody, well, the truth is everybody has a cannabis story, Even I'm very active in my temple, and in our sisterhood, I'm having a doctor come in and we're going to do a talk on cannabis for our Friday night Shabbat pre-service.
Oh, that's great.
These are older women, a little bit older than me, and we are the fastest growing population of users. And I heard your other interview with the Canna Mama, the nurse.
Yeah, Jessie.
Right. Jessie, these products are tricky because they aren't regulated enough. And if you start making products that aren't good, you think it doesn't work.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate part. So, it's education, which seems sort of boring, but just getting the message out consistently. I think that's what we're hoping to do. And, getting out in a mature way. I like to say I'm the Terry Gross of cannabis.
I love that.
Okay. Terry Gross. Love her.
Yeah. We're not consuming. We're not joking. We know what we're talking about, serious stories. Yeah.
And someone called us the click and clack
of cannabis.
Did they? Oh, that's good. That's people are listening.
But, again, it needs to be educational and accessible, and people, it's hard to shift people's belief system.
And positive.
It really is. And, that mentality of it and I find myself, I'm baked or I'm a stoner, that kind of stuff. I try to change that language.
I do too. Yeah. I don't like the stoner language.
Yeah. Every now and then I do it, but yeah, cause then it just feeds into that kind of mentality.
The negative stigma.
Negative
stigma.
For the
most part, people have been very positive, and
that's good.
There is some education around the endocannabinoid system. My friends still want to equate alcohol and opiates with cannabis, which frustrates me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a little bit of that education.
Next up is a short clip from Ruth Fisher. She is a researcher and analyst, PhD, and author of the Medical Cannabis Primer.
So the bad news is it's really complicated, and anyone who's trying to figure this out is going to get lost really quickly. And the more I know, the less I feel I understand.
Yeah.
And the good news is they're learning so much, and they're learning how different combinations can do these amazing things. And as they learn, they're discovering new cannabinoids all the time, and they're discovering new terpenes, and they're discovering new ways that combinations of cannabinoids and terpenes can help. So I think in the future that the applications of cannabis and different profiles of compounds and the applications to all the different medical conditions, I think it's going to mushroom.
Do you?
I do. I think it's going to take them a long time to figure it all out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the potential is really amazing. And all the people who think that it's just total crap and people just want to get high. Well, yeah, some people want to get high, but it's not crap. It's doing amazing.
And that is a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in to TSC Talks. We hope you enjoyed that awesome podcast with women in weed. Check out our website, tsctalks.com, and tune in for more here. And that's the end. I'm going to stop talking. Play you out with the music.